Quite incredible scenes over the weekend. Would you say that this was the most violent weekend of protests so far?
Yeah, we can probably say that, yes. I mean, the 13th consecutive weekend of demonstrations, and they have increasingly gotten more confrontational. Of course, Saturday, everybody saw on the video that's gone around the world, of course, some of those skirmishes and pitched battles that went into the subway stations with police, black-clad police, riot police, coming aboard the trains and rounding up some of the protesters who they allege were involved in the violent protests Saturday night in Wan Chai around the police headquarters that led to a giant bonfire, if you want to call it that, set by one of the barricades, of course, and it really did get a bit out of control. The water cannons came out, the tear gas came out. The water cannons were using the blue dye to help police identify the protesters, but true to their guerrilla-like tactics, oftentimes they will find changes of clothes stashed in areas around the subway stations. The police, though, really sussing them out, chasing them down through the stations. It was quite chaotic on Saturday night. We're now at the Airport Express station in central Hong Kong because on Sunday it was more of a civil action, a call for disruption. They want to take this message to international travelers to take that message back home. Their overriding message to international travelers is, okay, this might be one day of inconvenience to you, but this is our future. This is our revolution of our time. So they apologize, but they want to cause as much civic disruption as possible. And as rightfully you said, Paul, they're calling for more general strikes today and tomorrow.
Well, you see, one thing that strikes me as very difficult for anyone involved in this to deal with concretely is that you have a group of young protesters who have very firm goals they do not want to give up. You've got a Hong Kong government that has been unable to do much, and then you've got China on the other side. Who's got to lead this forward in order to make something happen? Or do you think the Chinese just want to let this play out and hope it goes away?
Yeah, well, that's the big conundrum. That's the biggest thing that I've been talking about for weeks now. It seems like I'm on this, wash, rinse, repeat story every Monday because it does not get any better because the government says we're not going to have dialogue. Well, we're going to have dialogue, but only when, the violence calms down. But then the protesters say, you're not, conceding to any of our demands. You're not really talking to the right people. And peaceful marches have not gotten us anywhere, so they have been ramping up the violence, at least a smaller, more extreme component to these protests. So we're in that proverbial catch-22 right now. Who gives in first? And all the while, it gets even more radical and more dire, and where we can't seem to have any side willing to back down. That's why we're going to have more general strikes today. Secondary students in high school, we have college students. We have more disruptions planned today for the MTR. Many of the protesters are upset at the rail operator for closing stations, where a lot of the protesters have used, of course, the local subway to flee from the police. It's a mess.